Hello gamers and welcome to Game Warp. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim.
And this is a look back at Mortal Kombat X. Now, Mortal Kombat is an extremely long-running series and something that, it warms the cockles of us as old gamers as it takes us back to simpler times, with the first game being released way back in 1992 from the team of Ed Boon and John Tobias. We are now obviously here with the 10th installment. The 11th is really just around the corner. And it felt it was obviously with Mortal Kombat 11 just fast approaching. It was to really go back and look at Mortal Kombat X, which is probably one of the most groundbreaking games in the series, and certainly a real highlight, especially after its reboot with just Mortal Kombat. As I said, myself and Kim, we've both resat down with the game and just refreshed ourselves, and we thought we'd see where things obviously stand before we obviously entered the fun and games of Mortal Kombat 11. But I mean, Kim, when it comes to Mortal Kombat games, is this something you sort of came up with, or you sort of like a latecomer to the series, or?
I'd like to say that I remember playing Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat, like the first one, like in the 90s.
Yeah.
I don't remember it was the first or the second that I played, but I remembered my cousin had it, and it was like this really big deal back then. It was like, oh, yay, Street Fighter, and then yay, Mortal Kombat came out, and then, I remember that game being like immensely easier to play, and I really, that was the time that I played video games. Was when I leached off my cousin's consoles. Because he always got the newest things. But yeah, no, I remember playing Mortal Kombat back then, and really, I did enjoy it a lot. I've never been really good at fighting, so I guess I can say that I am an early comer to the series, but then I haven't touched it until, this one. So, I mean, there's, a big gap between whatever, the 1 and 2, and then now. So, it's obviously changed from some pixelated format to now it's, almost, you can call it cinematic.
Oh, definitely, definitely so. I mean, obviously, back in the day when the original one was released, they're using images of real life actors, which sort of made it stand out from its counterpart Street Fighter 2. That combined with the fact it was just lots of blood and gore, and it was just incredibly violent, which, while it's obviously known for that at the time, I mean, there was obviously a lot more violent games out as well at the time. I mean, we obviously had Doom, we had Moonstone. You can look at games that era and just before games start getting rating and just realize that, people were doing horrible things to each other in video games well before Mortal Kombat came along and sort of upset all the moral senses. And I think that in part had a large part to do with the fact that it was just so popular and so much in the public conscious. But like yourself, Kim, I mean, the series sort of hit its peak in 96 with Mortal Kombat Trilogy. So, I mean, if you played obviously the first two, I think you really got that classic Mortal Kombat experience, and it entered into this really sort of horrible dark era where when we got into the next gen consoles and we had games of Deadly Alliance and Deception and Armageddon, and they just never managed to really nail down the 3D realm when it came to Mortal Kombat games. So when we obviously had Mortal Kombat come along, which would officially be Mortal Kombat 9, it sort of felt like just that they just got rid of a whole load of junk and just refreshed it. And then also with Mortal Kombat X, it's making its debut on the current gen system, so your Xbox One, Steam, and PlayStation 4. And I don't know about yourself, but it felt like a reboot again. Here we have a game which is just so cinematic and beautiful to look at. It's like this wonderful, perfect fighting game, and that is taken these 10 volumes just to perfect the formula that we're obviously given with Mortal Kombat X.
Yeah, well, it also helps that now they have this there's a technology to support this kind of thing, right? Most games now look gorgeous, and I mean, obviously now a gorgeous game is something that you don't really talk about anymore, especially when it's like a AAA studio when it's like a AAA studio working on it, because when something's super defined, you kind of expect quality to go with it. And I mean, it's nice to see that using what they have right now, like obviously the story itself. I mean, we mostly focused on the story mode to really just try out the mechanics and the fighting bits and all that sort of thing. And I thought it was really nice to be looking at this, and the story itself was, you still bring in a lot of the elements it had from the start, and we see a lot of characters, and I think it's nice because you go through all the realms, so they really like expand the story quite a bit over the 12 chapters that they have, and you get to kind of have like a initial test of which character you like to play most out of, like, because 12 chapters have 12 different characters that you can play with.
That's right. I mean, the story mode is absolutely fantastic and something that's often missing from fighting games. And I always find that if you buy a fighting game, it only really sort of works best if you've got someone to play against. And to, obviously, the credit of Mortal Kombat, it gives you a really decent story mode, to which enables you to get like the sample of different characters and their different play styles. And at the same time, really tells a great story as it picks up the story where the story left off in the previous game. So 2 years after the defeat of Shao Kahn, and I'm not going to go into the story because the story itself is just really complex, and we'll be here a while if I'm trying to explain it all. But basically, we pick up the story, and we're also going 25 years into the future. So we get the next generation characters. So we get the daughter of Jax, who's called Jackie. We get Kung Lao's cousin, Kung Jin. We also get to see people such as Cassie Cage, who's the daughter of Johnny Cage, and Sonya Blade. And it's kind of funny when you came in, if you joined the sort of series and you had like these original fighters, and we now see where they are like these 25 years later, and where different sort of characters are in relation to the sort of landscape of this world, where obviously like Sonya's now like this general of the special forces of Earthrealm, and she's obviously going for this messy divorce with Johnny Cage, and you never thought that those two characters would end together, but yet here they are. They've got this daughter who's now part of the tournament, and I don't know, I mean, for yourself, I mean, how do the next gen sort of characters feel when we obviously look at the likes of Cassie and Jackie and Kung Jin, sort of like these characters who are like playing the sons and daughters or sort of cousins of the original cast?
Well, I think they really tried to give them kind of like this background story of, like how their parents and has affected them in a certain way, and how they grew up, and just how some of them had a lot of resistance from their parents, like, Jax against Jackie being part of the special forces. I forgot what it's called. So I think it's okay. The characters are, they're kind of like those full of themselves kids who go out and they think they can do everything, and then and then of course you have Johnny Cage just like sends them into one of the chapters is Johnny Cage sends them to like Sub-Zero's turf, I guess, and then it's like they get their ass kicked, and it's like you play Sub-Zero kicking the kids' asses, and then you realize it's all a setup. So it's kind of like, you go into these things and they're really, I think it's also setting them up for maybe this 11 is going to continue the story in some way or another.
Yeah, and I think the only problem is that when you're obviously playing as these generational characters, is the fact that you can pit like Johnny Cage against Cassie Cage and Jackie against her father, and the fact is that you can also do the fatalities on these characters, which is, it's such a weird concept when you sit down and think about it. It's like, oh, here's Johnny Cage ripping his daughter's chest open. And, it's like, oh, that's not good. That's kind of extreme parenting. It's like,
yeah, but then I mean, I think Mortal Kombat is really for those who it's like this territory of ultra violence. You can go you can do like brutalities, you can do fatalities, And on top of that, like, you can interact with everything there, and everything's so, there's so many things you can interact with in that map that you choose, that arena that you choose.
Oh, definitely so, and I think this is sort of the real sort of highlight and what NetherRealm have really added to the game. And when we look at the whole fighting sort of landscape, is the fact there's so much interaction, which can really help you over the course of the fight, yet at the same time adds a real sort of flow to the fight. Like, you can be getting beaten down and suddenly like have the option to like swing a hammer or throw something at your opponent, and these little moments, these little animations that they throw into the fight really sort of add to the flow of the fight and sort of add new sort of dimensions. I mean, the fact that they're so different on each stage as well. Like there's a dock where you see bodies like fly up in the air that have been obviously washed out from sea, and you can use that to swing at an opponent. There's an old woman that can be thrown at your opponent on one of the stages, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I like all those little sort of details, and I also love the fact that with where other fighting games are becoming more complex, like when we look at Street Fighter, it's just like these insanely complex combos. With NetherRealm, who obviously developing this game, and you see this with their Injustice series as well. The fighting mechanics are really simplified, so that even someone like myself, who's not particularly the best at remembering combos, you can still pull off impressive looking moves, and at the same time there's still the depth there for the players who want to go deeper with it. And I thought that was a really great move, rather than burying everything behind these complicated button combos, to have a basic set of moves, like you press blue and then up and it do something, and you press blue and down and it do something different, and these are all really fun little moves. And I think it goes away to combating those members of your family who may just button bash like crazy to see what happens. Mm-hmm. I just really just the whole combat sequence was just such a joy to use, and really just another great thing that NetherRealm have obviously brought to these games, and just by stripping away all the nonsense and complexity and just like rebuilding it up and just like looking at it and going, what do we want from a fighting game? Do we need all this complicated stuff that may have worked like back in the day, but now really hasn't got the place in these sort of times where we don't use credit systems and we have unlimited lives and all these things that originally would have been cheat codes. And I love the fact that they just stripped it right down, and it's really what the game needs, and it's why it works so well now. It's such a wonderful fighting system, and the controls are just so really fun to play around with. I had a real joy using and playing the game.
I agree with that, I think, but the deal is that I think who would argue with us over this point would be hardcore fighting gamers, because I mean, it's that kind of debate that people have between Street Fighter V and Street Fighter IV, and how very dedicated Street Fighter players like the authentic feeling that's in Street Fighter IV, and kind of like don't and dislike that sort of stripped down controls of Street Fighter V. But I mean, like, I personally, obviously for me, I'm not a great fighting gamer, and like I don't play this all the time. It's something that I like to jump in, play a few fights, and then I come back out, and then I mean, I don't remember combos more than like 4. Like, if you have more than 4 buttons, chances are, unless you're like mashing one single button or 2 buttons, it's not gonna happen. I actually ended up using my controller and changing it into kind of like, when I had to do really fast combo moves, I would be like changing it into something like a joystick, and then flipping over right away to try and block. And then I figured out this really great system where it worked. So like things got a lot easier after that. So yeah, I mean, fighting games essentially is still a very arcade experience. So I think like, I personally think this game is pretty cool. And on top of that, I think the story mode also did really well, because it also gave you, like, I'm a big fan, I think people have noticed this if they listen to a lot of the episodes, I'm a big fan of quick time events. And I thought adding in those little quick time events was really cool. It was like a nice change in pace. of things that, you know, you get to decide. If you miss it, well, then, you know, your character gets hurt. But it doesn't really affect anything afterwards. It's just kind of like changes kind of like the sequence of how that sequence would go. So it's a little bit more personal to you if you get it or not.
The old man sort of gamer in me just like appreciates the fact it's simpler now, because you know, your fingers and hands don't move as quick as they used to do back in the day when you had the muscle memory to remember all these things. And
of course.
And then obviously, like again, it's sort of like, do I really want the respect of the guy who's they're criticizing this system? It's sort of like, do I really care that it's simplified? No, I don't mind that it's matter. It works for this game, and I like that. I like it, as I said, the fact it's so easy to pick up and play a few rounds and get a sense of satisfaction rather than just like bouncing around the screen, you know, doing an occasional punch or kick to someone. It, you know, it makes me feel that I'm playing these fantastical characters, like, and not just sort of just playing grease-skinned punch kick man. Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is that what I'm really trying to say is that I really appreciate it, and I think that it's a really nice move for them to incorporate even the more casual players into this sort of fighting game, because, you know, sometimes the barrier of entry is really knowing that you have to remember all these things and it's super hard to pick up. There's like this incredibly steep learning curve. Yeah. And I think that was one of the reasons why I stay away from fighting games a lot, because what's fun in a game when you play and then you just keep dying and you keep losing, right? Whereas this one, you feel kind of like, oh, well, it's possible, and, you know, you feel like there's like a step, you know, you start with, you know, the little combos, and then you start getting into there's like 4 pages of combos to look at, you know? I'm not sure my human brain is possible to remember all that. A lot of it is coming down to trial and error at some point. So, at least for myself it is. Because by the time, you know, I look at like some of the easier combos, and then you're like, okay, well, those work really well, and most of the time they usually land, and then, you know, there's still that sort of like timing it right, and there's still a lot of things to consider, but I think like the system they have and the mechanics they have are polished really, really well. So the feeling is kind of like, if something doesn't work and you know it's your fault, then it's okay. It's okay. I'm willing to retry or redo, and especially like for the story mode, you can retry and retry and retry as long as you want, and then you can skip the fight if you get fed up.
Yeah, that's a great little aspect to it, because there are some of these fights where they're just they're very frustrating people to try and beat. I think it's Ermac. In particular, is just, I don't know, he's kind of a cheating sod. And Scorpion, if you're playing online, can be also manipulated to turn into a real nightmare as well. So.
Scorpion was a pain. Oh my god. I'm more of like if like, I think the harder characters to control, not to fight, but the harder characters to control are the heavier characters. So like the bigger ones, the slower movements. I always find those to be more of like, you know, they're always more of a challenge because they're such a powerhouse. But they're kind of like those characters, if you master them, they are kind of like really great to use. Although, you know, I'm not a person that has that much patience with it, so I'm more of like a Sonya Blade sort of girl, where I really like her quick movements.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, well, being like an old school fan, I mean, there are obviously characters that I return to time and time again, like Sub-Zero and Scorpion. And then this one's obviously introducing like new characters like Ferritor, who's basically like the outward version of Master Blast from Mad Max 3, and it's basically this little girl who rides on top of this big giant Goliath creature, and I just love the little team up fighting sequence, and certainly when you get into like the X-ray moves, and again the X-ray moves is really simple. It's just the double trigger, pulling both triggers, and I thought that was a really nice touch. The fact that you can pull off these really cool looking ultra violent moves.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even the training mode for like fatalities, so you can know where you have to stand, and you can buy easy fatalities, which so it becomes even easier still. So I mean, that was always a problem with like the old school Mortal Kombat games, and the fact that you would get to the finishing screen and you would never remember what you're supposed to input, and you normally screw it up anyway. So it's kind of nice the fact that they've simplified that for those who haven't got the good memory.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, obviously with the characters here, we got I think, well, we've got a mixture of returning characters. We've got some interesting new characters, as we mentioned earlier. We've got the next gen characters like Cassie and Jackie. We've got newer characters like Aaron Black, who's like a gunslinger. We've got Ferrator. And we've got like Devora, who's like a insect queen.
Kind of reminds me of like Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy, just a lot more violent.
Yes, exactly. She has a really great story arc, just seeing how she like basically double crosses everyone. Now there's other characters that we obviously see throughout the story mode as well, such as like Baraka and Sindel and Frost, and I think it's really exciting the fact that they're going to be in the next game. So being like a long-term fan, it was kind of like a real kick to see, it's like, there's Baraka, there's Jade, there's Frost. It's like, I really want to play those characters, and I'm just really excited now for like 11 when I will actually get to play them. So
did you actually because I have Mortal Kombat XL, so that includes like the combat pack 1 and 2. I didn't have a chance to try it, but did you ever try like the Jason Voorhees and the Predator and Tremor and all that stuff, and Alien and Leatherface and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, they're really good characters. I love the fact that you've got horror icons in here. Now, obviously, part of me wishes that they carried across Freddy Krueger from the previous game, where he was like one of the guest characters, and that would have been great because then we could do like Freddy versus Jason, because we get Alien versus Predator, which makes sense, but now we have to set up for Jason versus Leatherface, and I love Leatherface, but I kind of just wanted them to bring back Freddy as well.
Yeah, but apparently I was looking through Wikipedia, and it was saying that the mobile game version of MKX actually has Freddy Krueger as a guest character too.
Okay.
Not that I just I've never played this on mobile, but
I don't know. I could play this on mobile. I'm not sure
how exactly. I would have no idea how to play this as mobile. I don't think I've ever felt like playing this on mobile is a good idea, unless they put like an actual joystick on the screen or something like that.
Well,
I don't know.
It's hard enough to play the game with an actual controller, never mind a virtual controller. So
yeah.
How that would work, I've really no idea. But I love the guest characters. I think they're really good. It makes me obviously excited to see what the guest characters for the next game are going to be. I keep being... People say that they're going to bring in Chucky, which would be horrible. Because nobody likes a midget character. As we all learned in like SoCal before with Yoda, and the fact that you're punching and you're punching over his head. So it's just like a real pain in the ass to fight him all the time. So, and as I say, it then becomes like the situation like if you play multiplayer, you have like the no odd job rule. So you can't be like Oddjob, but you can't be like Gex, or you can't be Yoda in that. So I really hope they don't put Chucky in there, and they keep also threatening to put Scooby from Scooby-Doo in there as well, which sounds equally horrible. So.
Oh my goodness. But I mean, talking about that, like how, like with what we've seen of Mortal Kombat 11, which is 0 on my part, but I mean, I know you've caught up with most of the media and stuff. How what's your excitement level? You seem fairly excited about it.
I'm very excited. I mean, I saw the launch that Ed Boon did, and even though we had like a couple of characters there, so we saw like Sonya versus Baraka, and seeing those new fatalities and stuff, because they basically know what everybody's there for at this point. So they're there. They all want to see like the new characters. They want to see fatalities, and that's what basically Ed Boon was delivering. It's sort of like, oh look, here's Baraka, and it's like he's going to fillet Sonya Blade's face, and it's sort of like, wow. And now we've obviously got all this power and stuff. I mean, we thought like the game was violent to begin with, and now we have all this power of the new systems, and we can do just such horrible, disgusting things to each other. And I'm sure if I was like playing this as a kid, I'd be losing my mind. But you know, as you get older, you become a little more sensitive to these things. It's like, wow, that's, you know, perhaps taking it a little far. Yeah, when you're like playing as like Kung Lao, his fatality is like a where he turns his hat into a buzzsaw and then basically pulls his opponent through and like buzzsaws them in half. It's like, Jesus Christ, that's really sort of full on. And with Mortal Kombat 11, it seems to only be doing the same thing again. There's a really great fatality Sonya does where she like tosses them up in the air and then uses her wrist gauntlets to shoot her opponent into a helicopter blade, which looked really cool. We saw like characters such as the Blood Witch, who like takes the blood from the body and turns it into a spear to drive through her opponent. And yeah, okay.
I mean, if we look at like some of the Mortal Kombat 11 info that's out right now, there's obviously fatalities and brutalities, and those are things that was at the launch, whatever you call it, stream or whatever you call it. And
fanboys get excited over minimal details.
Yeah, and then apparently they have some new gameplay features, Fatal Blow and Crushing Blow, which is like special moves, and then there's a flawless block mechanic, which is like with a comeback window that like after blocking there's a comeback window after blocking an attack. You know, it feels like there are some additional fun things to do, and you know, Crushing Blow has a special cinematic variation, which is interesting. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things. It's just the more crazy things you add, the more things you need to remember to make them happen.
I think, well, with the thing with Mortal Kombat is that when we looked at like games like 2 and 3 in the series and just what they added there, because before it was just like fatalities, and then we get into like 2 and it's like babalities and friendships, and then we get into 3 and we're talking about brutalities and mercies and animalities, and it just kept pushing it. I mean, we got into like some of like the later games. I think it was like Deception, and you could perform Harakiri, so you could kill yourself to take it away from your opponent. So I'm hoping that they don't go too crazy again, because basically when we got to Mortal Kombat 9, they just scraped all that nonsense out and just like said, no, you're not doing babalities or any of that nonsense. We'll just keep it simple. And I'm just hoping that the fact that the desire to obviously bring new features and new things to the game, that they don't go back and think, oh, you know, let's revisit the babality thing again. Everyone really liked that. But I mean, the game's set to have 25 characters at launch, which is a really decent roster. I mean, we've got, again, a collection of old favourites. We've got Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Johnny Cage. We've got some people that we really want to see from like the previous games. So like Cabal is going to be playable. We've got Baraka is going to be playable. Devora is going to return. This is Jade. So we've got a couple of new ones, as I said, like Scarlet, who's going to be the Blood Witch. So I'm excited to see what comes out. It's sort of like every time we get a new piece of like information, it's a little rush of excitement. It's McFarlane Toys are going to be putting out the action figures to go with the game, so you got more stuff to clutter your desk as well. So
definitely. Well, I mean, I think this year is already going pretty strong. So with Mortal Kombat 11 coming out in April, it's gonna be a fun year, I think. There's going to be a lot to look at, especially because Mortal Kombat usually, you know, they're going to follow through with like maybe, you know, months after with like different packs and new characters and new rosters and stuff like that. So it's going to be a fun year to see where Mortal Kombat 11, you know, takes this game, this franchise.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of positivity surrounding the game, and certainly the base it's building on from Mortal Kombat X. And I mean, Mortal Kombat X is still such an incredibly deep game. I mean, there's a lot of things we didn't sort of touch on really, and there's a lot of small fun little details, such as like when you do the alien fatality where it launches a face hugger, then an alien burst out of your opponent's chest. It will match the characteristics of the person you're fighting, and with Kung Lao, it has a little hat on, which I think is kind of cool. And if you do it to Predator, you get like the Pred alien, and you can go if you like select certain looks or characters, and you have certain opponents face each other. They will say different things to each other, such as if you have like Johnny Cage versus Jax, and Jax is in the Predator costume set. They would do the Predator handshake, and it's it's just. I love those little riffs, like when you have certain characters face each other, they'll riff off each other, and I'm just hoping that it maintains the fun of this entry, because I really enjoyed it. I'm going back to it now after being away from it for so long. It just felt really fresh and interesting game, and really what the fighting games needed, especially in these times where everything's just been made so complex and overworked. It's just nice to just have like, here's some simple fighting rules, some colourful characters, interesting environments, and just it's just a generally fun time. I think the only sort of disappointment I had with the game is that you get so used to playing against the computer and having this flow of styles and different things being thrown at, and then you play online and you realise that perhaps it wasn't as good as I thought it was. And you and your opponent just basically bounce around the screen doing punch kick man again. It's like, this is a little disappointing. I'm gonna go back and play the computer.
Okay, so with that said, what are you gonna score this?
I'm gonna give this 5. I really like it. As a long-term Mortal Kombat fan, this feels like the ultimate experience in terms of Mortal Kombat, and it's sort of like it just reassures us that NetherRealm are on the right path, especially after those dark years of seeing things such as like Mortal Kombat Special Forces and Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, and these attempts to like do things with the game that just never work. So it's nice to see things still on track with Mortal Kombat X, and just makes me so excited to see what's next to come with Mortal Kombat 11.
Well, I mean, with the 5 rating, you're going to this is Mortal Kombat 11 has some big shoes to fill. Actually, I'm exactly where you are. I think I was just so pleasantly surprised by Mortal Kombat 10. I just thought MKX really delivered on so much, and I never expected that I would. I like playing fighting games every once in a while, but I really enjoyed it. It really decreased a lot of intimidation, and I think that had to do with the fact that I didn't go online and play with other people. But I just played with the PC versus the PC most of the time, and I really enjoyed it. Just even those basic little things, and and the whole game experience, the polish, the mechanics, the story mode. I think that everything was so well thought of. It considered pretty much their gaming audience as a whole, and not just that one market of really dedicated fighting game audience that they have. So I think that I think a 5 is completely worth it, and it says a lot, especially like now that we're picking it up right before MK11 is coming out, and it really kind of gives this this extra boost of excitement on our end. I can't say I'm gonna be buying it right away, because I'm sure it's gonna be astronomically expensive, but there's definitely an interest that I hope that I'll be looking out for some sales to try and pick it up at some point. Although Tekken 7 is in line, and Soul Calibur 6 is also in line, so we'll see. We'll see where we are at that point. With that said, this wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, or our blog, gamewarppodcast.wordpress.com, to read gaming reviews, to get gaming news every single day. Follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at GameWarpPodcast. You can check out our gaming obsessions over on Instagram. Instagram.com/GameWarpPodcast. And when we do stream, which is mostly Elwood nowadays, then you can check it out at twitch.tv/GameWarpPodcast. Till next time, bye!